Good afternoon. In a little better mood today, man. Anybody got any contract questions? I'll say this, I certainly could have handled that situation better than I did, but I'll also say this. I just believe there's a time and place for everything, and post-game press conferences are probably not the place to address contract issues and things of that nature. It's just a very individual thing, and on game day, I doubt any of us are in that mindset. Certainly I am not. What's required to do what it is that we do, the amount of focus pouring into a collective, I'm just not in that mind state, and I just don't believe that's the appropriate venue to talk about things of that nature. Certainly open and willing to do it today in this venue. In assessing our last performance in the season, I'm proud of the guys. I'm proud of their fight. I'm certainly disappointed that we're not preparing to play this week. I know that they are. It comes to a screeching halt. These are awkward days kind of at the end of the season. And so we're finding our footing. We're doing appropriate things. Exit interviews, I'm in the midst of beginning those things with players and staffing. The players themselves are exiting appropriately, meeting with coaches, departmental meetings, training staff, equipment, strength and conditioning, et cetera, nutrition. Those are the things that kind of go on this time of year in an effort to review what transpired, to gather information, all so that when the time is right, man, we start building for 2024, we do so with that information, with those lessons learned, with that experience individually and collectively. And so we got a lot of work ahead of us. There were some things to be proud of. Obviously, there's some things that require a lot of attention and work. But first and foremost, man, we got information gathering. We got to assess what transpired. Those who are lacking health obviously have to address that sooner rather than later. We're not into medical issues lingering into the off season. We probably have a few surgeries scheduled. I don't have that list. Nothing major, some cleanup procedural things, but nothing major. TJ's rehabilitation is going well. He probably would have been available had we played this week. Got a couple guys in the concussion protocol from the last performance, Joey Porter Jr., and Allen Robinson. I imagine that is running its course. The rest of the things are exit interview in nature, cleanups, et cetera. We got some guys that are on IR, that have been on IR, that their rehabilitation processes are running their courses. From a coaching perspective, obviously, things never stay the same. I'm appreciative of this collective and what they were willing to do, all while understanding that there will be changes. I think those of us that are in this business understand that. We'll thoughtfully and intentionally go about that, just really at the empathy of that as well, in terms of gathering information about outside candidates and what the process of interviewing looks like in 2024, particularly from the coordinator perspective. There's some procedural things that you got to go through in an effort to be in compliance with New York. We'll respect those things and go about those things appropriately. But more than anything, man, I'm just disappointed we're not working. I understand the road is narrow, but man, we worked 12 months to be on it, and we have to acknowledge that we're not. The consequences of that, obviously, and so it's tough, but we're built for it. This is the life we chose, man. It's an honor to lead this group, to chase what it is that we're chasing continually. I'll pause and open it up for questions.
Mike, do you foresee either Eddie or Mike Tomlin being candidates for the office coordinator job?
You know, not at this juncture, man. I'm looking at outside candidates, and lining up the pecking order there. I am appreciative of their efforts, in terms of what they did for us down the stretch. But I'm looking at outside candidates, at this juncture.
Will Kenny resume his QB1 status?
You know, he will, but obviously, there will be competition. There's always competition in this thing. We don't anoint anyone. Man, I'm appreciative of his efforts and where he is, and excited about continuing to work with him. But certainly, he will be challenged from a competition perspective, moving forward. Competition brings the best out in all of us.
Would that competition be from Mason?
I'm sorry.
Is it the hope of the franchise that Mason Rudolph will be back in providing that competition?
It is, but he is a free agent, and it is free agency. And so we'll see where that leads us.
Mike, you told the guys the other day in the meeting, I guess, that you intend to be back, disregarding rumors that were floating out there. You expect to get an extension this year? Typically would.
Yes, I expect to be back, and I imagine that those contract things are gonna run their course, and Art and I have a really good, transparent relationship. We communicate continually, often. I don't imagine it's gonna be an issue. I imagine it's gonna get done in a timely manner at the appropriate time. But, you know, my mindset is to coach this football team, certainly.
Mike, Deontay Johnson said that he hopes Mason Rudolph gets the job. Do you worry about a competition situation potentially dividing the room or the team?
I do not. I think competition is good. I think it's good for all of us. I think it brings out the best in all of us.
Do you expect that competition to be between Rudolph and Kenny, or are you trying to bring someone else in, whether that be draft or elsewhere?
Again, we got a lot of decisions regarding free agency. Mason is scheduled to be a free agent, and so I'd be speculating about some of those things.
Mike, what are the things you're looking for in a new offensive coordinator? Where do you feel like you guys need to evolve as an offense?
You know, I want us to be versatile and dynamic. Obviously, we gotta score more points. I wanna be able to keep defenses off balance. I wanna utilize all the talent that we have at our disposal. I'm excited about this process and the talent pool out there based on what I've seen thus far. I'm really open to kind of learning through this process, man, and seeing what people have to say about their visions. And so, certainly, I have a vision of what it looks like, but certainly open to learning through this process.
Mike, you've gone in-house in these last couple of coordinator hires. Why go outside the center?
I just feel it's appropriate.
Mike, how do you evaluate decisions about your future, contract status aside, but at the conclusion of each season, how do you make that decision, and how has that changed over the course of your career?
I don't know that it has. I coach football, that's what I do. I'm respectful of the position that I hold. I have no sense of entitlement in terms of what I do. I just got a high level of respect for what we all do in this space, and I try to earn it daily, and I think that's just my mentality. I don't ponder a lot of things. I'm appreciative of things daily, and I try to work with urgency daily, and I don't know that that has changed. It probably hasn't from my perspective. I'm always on go.
Mike, when it comes to hiring offensive coordinator, who will be some of the people having a say in that decision?
Be a small group, would be obviously myself, Art Rooney, and Omar Khan.
Would you prefer that this person have prior NFL coordinating experience for the last 2 hires?
Yes.
Mike, would you consider adding to your offensive staff, maybe someone like what we'll see in Britain?
Certainly. I'm looking at all components of staffing as part of the annual end of the season review, and additions in terms of expertise are certainly a component of that.
Mike, did Rudolph change your perception of him or what he might be capable of this year?
Oh, certainly. I don't think that any of us can deny what we've seen over the last month or so. I cannot underscore how impressive it is to be ready. Forget performance, and to be ready to deliver. And he was, and that preparedness showed. And so certainly, you know, we're less speculative about his capabilities because there's evidence of it, and evidence of it in tough circumstances.
Like, just the fact that he came into two training camps and came out as the number 3 quarterback, when he got to play, gave you some of the best results you've gotten. Give you some pause or because you look into the processes that led you to deciding he was gonna be the number 3 in the last 2 years?
No, man, oftentimes I say there's a fine line between being a pro bowler and a backup in our business, and it is. And so, you know, I'm not surprised by anything that has transpired, man. He is very capable. They all are across positions. I just think that when you're at the tip top of the food chain, that's how it is. And, it's our job as professionals, man, to be ready and to let our talent show. He did those things.
What's your confidence level in Kenny, not just on the field, but everything that comes with being starting quarterback, captain, leaders?
I'm extremely confident in him. I feel stronger about some of the intangible things than I did obviously when we first started doing business with him because I have evidence of it. He's highly competitive and professional. He doesn't run from challenges, he runs to challenges. I think that's evident in the way he plays, particularly in those football games. He's got good framework to work with for a young guy. He's mature beyond his years. I'm excited about it.
Mike, but that being said, is it the point of spurring out of some of that improvement has to be tangible, not just?
Certainly, it's a big year for him. We met this morning, and we acknowledged that. It is a huge year for him. But I'm also excited about just watching him wear that component of it because I know how he's wired and built. And I'm excited about watching him attack it.
Mike, the last 4 times you guys have been in the playoffs, it's been a one and done. What is the goal of this organization moving forward, and what's being done to kind of get there?
We want to be world champions. Every year, we build with that intention. We're not this year. So there's disappointment, obviously, with that. There's consequences of that. We're really just at the beginning stages of assessing why, and then continually plotting, of course, to move forward. Those will be our intentions in 2024, to be world champions.
Like, of your goals in 2023, what did you accomplish?
You know, I'm not looking to seek comfort. We want to be world champs. The tournament is still ongoing, and we're not in it. And so from that perspective, we fell short. And so I'm less concerned about some of the boxes we checked. And really, I'm just at the information gathering stage of all of this in an effort to position ourselves where we're not having this conversation, 12, 13 months from now.
Mike, you got some really powerful endorsements from your players over the last couple of days, and that's not necessarily anything new, but just to continue to hear that from your guys, what does it mean to you to instill that backing from the locker room?
I don't know what you're referring to, but, you cannot have unique results without unique relationships. What we seek is unique, and so what we give better be unique. And I better be at the front of that line, and I'm a willing participant in that way.
Mike, in that same vein, while the players were unanimous in supporting you and the coaching staff, several also mentioned that they think there should be changes to rules regarding structure and discipline. How do you incorporate that feedback into your off-season evaluation?
I do annually. That's what these exit interviews are about. One man's perspective is just one man's perspective, but I meet with everyone, and somewhere in there lies reality. And I'm always open to changing and doing what's necessary in an effort to move this collective forward in an effort to be world champs next year. So,
From your perspective, do there need to be changes dealing with structure and discipline to
there
elevate?
certainly need to be changes. You can't do the same things and expect a different result. I'm open and willing to that, certainly.
When you're looking for a coordinator, how much is it based on trying to get the best out of your quarterback or kid?
It's a significant component of it. This game is quarterback driven, offense is quarterback driven, and so their expertise in that area is a significant component of the search from my perspective.
Mike, you talked about, adding the offensive coordinator search. Is there any plans to change any of the defensive staff moving forward?
I'm not gonna speculate about staffing at this juncture. I just acknowledge, man, that, things change this time of year. it's just a component of our business at this level, and I'm sensitive and respectful to it.
Mike, you mentioned being always on go. Has that level of go changed at all from year one to year 18 going into year 18?
You know, I was probably intensified, to be quite honest with you. And I just see things with greater clarity through experience. And so it's probably intensified.
You know, the reason I ask is the stuff that was coming from outside of this room was that you might need a year off, you might be burned out. Is there any sense, I mean, I didn't see that, is there any sense of that from within, from your own perspective?
You guys are probably better equipped to understand the origins of some of that stuff than I am, to be quite honest with you. I understand speculation is a component of what it is that we do. I try not to get caught up in it and distracted by it, particularly when it's not where I'm at. And so that's been my mindset regarding it.
Did you tell anyone you planned to take a year off?
No.
I'd like to ask you about Kenny and Mason. What are things with Mitch from the franchise's point of view, and is he communicating to you?
I haven't met with Mitch yet, and so we're at the very early stages of some of that stuff. We'll see where the road leads us.
Mike, the games at Rudolph quarterback, did the approach become more aggressive? Did the play calling change significantly, or did he just maybe perform at a higher level of consistency than the other two guys?
You know, he performed very well, but our intentions were our intentions, you know. There was no tomorrow, and so we were aggressive in nature in about every component of what it is that we would get over that stretch.
In hindsight, it was a little too much to protect the ball and not enough to score the ball, or?
You know, I'll assess all of those things, but we're just at the very infancy of reviewing. You can paint with a broad brush sometimes, and that's probably not my style. I'm just probably more slow moving in terms of information gathering and assessing what transpired, all in an effort to do it better the next time.
Like you were planning to continue to jump into the scouting stuff and the pro days and the combine stuff right after this?
Absolutely.
Mike, do you view Broderick Jones as your left tackle next season, or do you think he'll stay on the right side?
Undecided as of yet. Obviously, he has capabilities in that area, but he was more than capable at right tackle as well.
Mike, are you at the point where you might go year to year with what you want to do, or do you still look at the big picture and you'll stay as long as they'll have it?
Who, me, myself personally? Man, I just like coming to work, man. My car key works. I'm gonna keep doing so. I'm just probably, I don't spend a lot of time from a big picture perspective. I just don't.
Mike, is there an importance though to have an extension just as you're interviewing OC candidates and also looking at free agents, so they know there's some stability?
No question. That's a component of it. You know, fielding less questions from you guys regarding those things is a component of it. But that's probably the only level of importance for me, to be quite honest with you. You know, security is cool, but it's not a top priority for me. I've seen a lot. I'm not job scared, but it does provide less questions and things of that nature, certainly.
And other times that you add extensions, it's usually taking place at the same time. You need to get it done earlier because of the things discussed.
It'll get done when it gets done. I'm not gonna speculate about that, and, you know, that's not a top priority for me, to be quite honest with you, in terms of the time of the facility.
Like, before they all got hurt, did you like what you were seeing from the collective at the inside linebacker position? Would you like to try to re-conglomerate that whole group?
You know, we were getting better production from that group, ball production, forced fumbles, turnovers, interceptions, et cetera. But the attrition component was treacherous things, was a treacherous thing to navigate, and so, you know, we got some decisions to make around that position, particularly in others. But the health factor was significant.
Mike, I know you said,
He has a target date in terms of readiness there, but it's still probably early. I'll have a more definitive posture on that probably when we get closer to OTAs and start speculating about some of those things then.
Mike, I know you said it'll be a competition most likely, but do you believe that next year's quarterback is currently on your roster?
Yes.
How would you assess, as an overall class, your rookies this year?
You know, I thought we got quality production from them. In many instances, they didn't wilt, which was good. We were thoughtful about their participation, in most instances early on in an effort so that they could be available for us down the stretch. That played out relatively well, to be quite honest with you. I'm excited about the group. Guys in that group, I think they got bright futures ahead of them, and I'm excited about being a component of their development.
Mike, do you
you
feel
were
the
just-
gap between yourself, this team, and the teams that are playing this weekend is smaller than it was a year ago?
Than it was a year ago, certainly. But we're watching and not playing, and so, you know, there's work to be done.
You've been in this pocket for a while, and sort of, you know, like right around a little over 500 in the playoffs, but not for very long. Can that, as opposed to being, 3 and 14, and having to blow it up, can that make it more difficult to piece together what needs to be done to get you guys to close that gap?
It all sucks. It does. There's not degrees of suck. It all sucks. I'd rather be working. The thought of going to Mobile turns my stomach. Not that I dislike Mobile, but I know what it's like when you're working and you're not in Mobile. It's a really good feeling to be in that tournament as the road is narrow, and to be living out the things that you aspire to live out over the last 12 months. And so, it's not us. It sucks.
7 straight years of that, not advancing in the dance. Mike, what gives you confidence you're still the right guy for the
51 years of life. I mentioned that, I think, in this setting earlier. I'm not lacking confidence in my ability to do the job, while at the same time, there's frustration, because I want that confetti for this group. And so, whatever we gotta do to do it, whatever changes need to be made, I'm open to it.
When you talk about wanting some confetti for the group, how much is specifically a guy like Cam Hayward, been here for a long time, sort of heart and soul of the team, if he does decide to come back, how much is wanting that guy to experience a championship now as opposed to in the next 2 or 3 years?
I think I always move in that urgency. I think you can point to guys like that annually that are deserving of being champions, and you want them to have that taste. Probably one of my biggest regrets professionally is that Marquise Pouncey, for example, is not a world champion, because that guy is. And so that is a motivating factor for me, certainly, but continually, it is.
Mike, did you guys find anything, the front office changed a little bit? Did you find anything that you may have changed in the evaluation process, be especially impactful with last year's draft? And do you think maybe you have a better beat on that now?
There certainly were some changes. I view some of those changes as beneficial, but, we'll be continually assessing that. I'm excited about getting into this process with that group again. There's usually improvement, second lap around the track. And so I'm excited about moving forward with them.
Mike, along those lines, looking at the moves that Omar Khan has made in the year and a half or so since he's been GM, what's your confidence level in his ability to help with the roster construction to get you guys to that next level?
I'm very confident.
Mike, what's your confidence in Joey Porter and just seeing his progress throughout the year to take on the different assignments that you guys have given?
I'm really excited about the trajectory of his career. Probably the most impressive component of where he is his mindset. He wants to fight. He wants the tough coverage. He's extremely competitive in that way. And that's a great place to build from. He's got growth obviously ahead of him, but that's real solid.
Mike, you guys have a 5th-year decision on Najee coming up. How do you assess how he's performed early through his first couple seasons?
Man, he's been what we needed him to be. I read a stat, I think, 1,000-yard rusher 3 straight years, and how scarce that is. And I just think that speaks to his consistency, availability. He's been really solid.
Patrick Peterson's under contract. Do you expect him back? Is he now a safety or a cornerback?
Again, we're really at the infancy of these things. I did meet with Pat. We had a good exit interview. I'm really appreciative of his experience and professionalism, and who he is as a man and player, what he's willing to do. But from a decision-making standpoint, we're just It certainly was difficult. I was really impressed with the way he handled it. He was really professional and supportive of Mason. He was a great teammate. But no question that was difficult, and he's a competitor. He runs to it, not away from it. Certainly, I know he wanted that experience with big divisional games down the stretch and things of that nature. He's wired in that way.
Some of the self-evaluation that goes on this time of year with the position that Will was talking about here, going into the playoffs as 7, going off, going on Kansas City, how much of an importance is there for these plays off and be light on your feet during the regular season when changes need to present themselves? Like, for instance, we were going through a rough time with 3-game losing streak in early December. You guys have to be a little bit more quick in times like that to react.
You always face challenges during the course of the season. They're always different and ever changing and complex. I think you got to continually have a hardcore plan while being light on your feet from a change perspective, while at the same time you can't blow in the wind, and so there's a delicate balance there, if you will. And I'm comfortable walking that. It's always different because the variables are many and different. Certainly, I hated that 3-game stretch. I realized how significant it was in our positioning. But we'll be faced with challenges moving forward. And in some ways, they'll be similar, but probably in a lot of ways, they'll be different and probably require different moves and so forth. And so I think that's what I just respect about this, how fragile and challenging it is. That's one of the reasons why I love it.
Does it get more, because of that, does it get more difficult to turn the page on each season? When we asked you in the pro, you mentioned, I know I have more football behind me than in front of me. Does that make it more difficult to kind of move past the disappointment?
It comes to a screeching halt. I don't know that you have an option. Sometimes I don't want to move past it. Sometimes I just want to be here for a minute. In an effort to improve. And so that's probably where I am, honestly, as I stand here today.
I think last offseason was Stewart's time. What was the most free agents that you had, you guys had? The Phillips, the first offseason, the new GM, was that sort of a new going forward? Is that kind of circumstantial? You see more veteran type starters?
Again, we're really at the very infancy of planning. We're open to doing business, certainly, and utilizing all things at our disposal to put together a strong group. We had some success in free agency last year. But as I've mentioned repeatedly in the past, oftentimes our interest in free agency really is just a continuation of draft interest that we might have had in someone. I think back to a decade ago, man, meeting Allen Robinson and his family up at Penn State at his pro day. Kevin Colbert and I stood in the parking lot and talked to Landon Robinson, his parents, for an hour after the Houston pro day when he came out 8 or so years ago. And so we're certainly players and open to being players in free agency. But we like to track these guys. We like to track these guys as far back as we can track them and have that background, that knowledge of who they are. And usually that's the basis of our interest.
Were there very many, maybe any of your starters that are currently scheduled to be free agents? How does that change how you go into that part of the process if you don't have very many of your own guys to take care of?
I don't know that it does. I just think, we strip ourselves clean this time of year, man, and assess any and everything and build. And so I don't know that posture changes at all.
Mike, when you talk about getting to know players through the draft process, how much attention will you be paying to the quarterbacks this draft season?
I always do. I'm a personnel buff. I don't think you can be in this profession, this coaching profession, and not be in the personnel, not have knowledge of people that play for you, that play against you, and particularly at the quarterback position. I enjoy it.
Mike, does that interest in quarterbacks extend to free agency? I know typically you guys haven't brought in a lot of big name quarterbacks that are free agents. Does that interest, when you look outside to bring in competition for Kenny, extend to that?
Again, I'd be speculate at this juncture. We're just at the early stages of it. I will acknowledge, obviously, that Mason Rudolph is scheduled to be a free agent, and we do have interest in doing continuing business with him. The rest of it, man, is kind of speculative at this point.
Mike, were there players that you guys, that you saw progress into leaders for you guys at important parts of the season that maybe you hadn't seen that before for this roster?
Yes, but not that I am shocked by that. I think the journey oftentimes provides opportunity for growth, to develop, to rise within the ranks in a lot of ways, whether it's in terms of division of labor and roles or leadership, and certainly some of that transpired.
Who were some of those players?
Man, I was really impressed by Fryer move down the stretch, for example.
Mike, how was George, when we asked you about him after the Indy game, where have you seen him mature, and how do you keep that moving forward?
It has been in all areas, in football and in life, but there's a lot of meat on that bone. And I'm excited about continuing to be a component of that process with him.
I guess young vet, and you feel you've got something there with him.
It's interesting, I just had an excellent interview with him. Really excited about the prospects of his future. He's really talented. I think he's capable of being dominant sooner rather than later. And so, the question is, how quickly can we make that happen? And what are our roles in doing so? And so we just had a real good conversation about what that looks like foundationally and how do we build.
Mike, as far as the quarterback position, would there be any interest in bringing in a veteran to kind of help mentor Kenny through this next stage?
I'm speculating at this juncture, and I want to stay away from that. I hadn't had any legitimate conversations about building for 2024 at this point. And so, I'm trying to stay away from some of the speculative things.
Mike, over the last month or so, you've been so complimentary of the guys off the couch, the Eric Rose and the Miles Jacks. Do you feel like those relationships could continue into the next year?
Certainly.
Like Marvin Leal was a third round pick before he ended up scratched in the last half of the year. Do you feel like there's a plan or a path for him to move forward as a more regular contributor?
There certainly is, but, he's got to be a component of that. Obviously, we put helmets on guys that we think are best positioned to help us secure victory, and he hadn't been a component of that, and so he's got some work to do.
Anyone else? Mike, is punter a position that you look to maybe improve next year?
I'll acknowledge that Presley was not consistent enough, particularly down the stretch.
All right.
Any more contracts? Have a good one.